The billionaire mother lay on the cold office floor while 3 fancy heels circled her like sharks. Water spread under her mop. Laughter cut the air. And not one of them knew the truth. The old cleaner they had just shoved was the owner's widow, the woman who had come in disguise to find a wife for her only son. This was Pierce Tower in Midtown Manhattan. This was no accident. This was her test. Her name was Eleanor Pierce. Most people called her Ellie, but in this building she wore a faded grey hoodie, cheap sneakers, and rubber gloves. A thin scarf hid her sharp cheekbones from glossy magazine covers that loved to say billionaire philanthropist. Here, she was the cleaner. Here, she would watch hearts, not handbags. Who let her in? Brittany said, nose wrinkled, voice loud. She missed a spot, Alexis added, pointing at the puddle, smiling for the crowd. Eleanor gripped the wet floor to rise. Her back burned. Her pride did not. She lifted her face and met their eyes, calm as stone. She did not speak. She wanted to see who would. A soft voice came first. Take my hand. A young woman knelt, steady and sure. Brown hair pulled back. No heavy makeup. A simple blue cardigan. Her badge read, Grace Miller, Junior Analyst. Grace slid her arm under Eleanor's elbow and helped her stand. Are you okay? I am, Eleanor said, breath thin, thank you. Don't thank her, Brittany snapped. She should thank us for not calling security. Grace looked at Brittany. Her tone stayed even. We can all be kind. Brittany rolled her eyes. Alexis laughed. They walked away, perfume heavy in their wake. Phones came out again. Work chatter rose like nothing had happened. But something had. The test had begun. It seemed like a normal workday at Pierce Global Holdings. Screens glowed. Coffee steamed. People typed and pretended to be very, very busy. Outside, taxis honked on 6th Avenue. Inside, the cleaning cart squeaked down the hall. Eleanor moved slow and small, eyes open, ears open. She watched who held doors. She listened to how people said thank you to the mailroom staff, or if they ever did. Her son, Nathan Pierce, was flying home that week from San Francisco. He had studied at Stanford. He had built a startup and sold it. He was bright and careful, but he had a warm heart. Too warm, Eleanor feared. After her husband died, the city had tried to swallow her. She would not let it swallow Nathan too. Money draws users. Power draws fakes. She would not let a gold digger crawl into her son's life. Not again. Never again. So she chose a plan that no one would expect. She would come low. Lower than low. She would mop. She would take every insult. She would see who still saw her as human. By noon, the break room filled. Brittany and Alexis held court at the far table. Designer bags. Loud laughs. Perfect nails. A crowd gathered and leaned in. Grace walked to the fridge, took out a plain brown bag, and sat near the window. Peanut butter sandwich. An apple. A small yogurt. She scrolled her phone and then set it face down. She ate slow. Quiet. Eleanor pushed her cart in, set a plastic container on the table, and sat down in the corner. The soup inside was chicken noodle, made by her own hands at 5 in the morning. It steamed and smelled like home on a cold day. Brittany sniffed. What is that smell? Alexis whispered, it's the cleaner's lunch. Eleanor lifted her spoon. She did not answer. Grace stood, crossed the room, and sat at Eleanor's table. That smells great, she said. Did you make it? Yes, Eleanor said. Would you like some? Grace smiled. I'd love a taste. Eleanor shared a spoon. Grace closed her eyes for a moment as she ate. It's so good. Brittany's voice rang from across the room. Careful, Grace. You might catch paw. No one laughed. The words hit the wall and died. Grace glanced up. Kindness isn't a disease. Eleanor's throat tightened. It had been a long time since anyone spoke up for someone beneath them in this building. She saw it clear now. Grace did not fake it. Grace did not play to the crowd. Grace chose a person. That mattered. Afternoon came. Eleanor rolled her cart to the women's restroom. She took a breath. She had one more test in mind. She poured a small bucket over the tiles, not a flood, just enough to make work. Then she lowered herself down and pressed a hand to her hip. "Ouch," she said, voice thin. "My hip." The door swung open. Alexis stepped in first. She saw Eleanor on the floor and smirked. "Still slow, her." Brittany followed. Maybe she should retire. Eleanor looked down. "Please, I need a hand." "We're not janitors," Brittany said. "That's your job." The door opened again. Grace hurried in, stopped, and took in the scene. She crouched, rolled up her sleeves, and started to wipe the water with paper towels. "Hold on. We'll get you up without slipping." Brittany groaned. "You're actually doing this?" Grace didn't look their way. "Yes." Eleanor watched her. The care was real. Not pity. Not show. Real. When the floor was safe, Grace helped her to her feet. "Let me walk you to a chair," she said. "Thank you, dear," Eleanor whispered. Her chest felt warm and sore at once. At 3 o'clock, the office buzz grew louder. News flashed around. Nathan Pierce would arrive tomorrow. Executives straightened ties. Assistants updated calendars. People sprayed more cologne than air. The sharks smelled fresh water. Eleanor cleaned a glass wall and saw her own small shape in it. She saw Grace behind her, head down, working through a spreadsheet no one praised. She saw Brittany and Alexis by the window, rehearsing smiles that did not touch their eyes. She had come seeking a good heart for her son. Today, she had found a clue. But the day was not done. As the sun slid behind towers and the office lights turned the city gold, Grace checked her phone and frowned. A new text from an unknown number waited on her screen. "Meet me at the Estia Hotel. 7 p.m. Come alone. I have information about your job." Grace looked around, uneasy. She did not see who watched her from the hall mirror, an old cleaner with wise eyes and a plan that was only just beginning. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the glass walls of Pierce Global Holdings. The office gleamed, bright, cold, and spotless. Eleanor Pierce stood quietly by the elevator, her mop in one hand, a faded badge around her neck. No one looked at her twice. That was exactly what she wanted. Today was the day her son, Nathan Pierce, would arrive. He was everything she and her late husband had dreamed of, smart, humble, and gentle. But Eleanor knew the world wasn't kind to gentle hearts. It ate them alive. Especially rich ones. So before Nathan took control of their billion-dollar company, she wanted to find the one woman who could stand beside him not for money, but for love. And now she had her eye on someone. Grace Miller, the junior staff who had helped her when everyone else had laughed. Inside the office, whispers spread like wildfire. "Did you hear? The boss's son lands today. He's single. And rich. He's so rich." Grace smiled faintly as she passed a group of gossiping interns. She had no interest in fairy tales. Her world was made of bills, not ballrooms. Her mom was sick back in Ohio, and Grace worked 2 jobs to keep up with medical costs. Love was a luxury she couldn't afford. Across the room, Eleanor watched. She had learned long ago that true character shows when no one's watching, and Grace didn't know she was being tested. By noon, tension buzzed through the building like static. Everyone wanted to look perfect for Nathan's arrival. Brittany and Alexis had swapped their office blouses for expensive designer ones, arguing over lipstick shades. The air smelled of perfume and competition. When the elevator finally opened, silence fell. Out stepped Nathan Pierce, tall, clean-cut, with sharp eyes that looked both kind and calculating. He greeted everyone with a polite smile, but Eleanor saw it, the curiosity in his face as he took in the scene. And then he saw her, the old cleaner wiping down the glass near his office. "Excuse me, he said softly, walking toward her. "Shouldn't someone help you with that?" The room froze. Executives stared. No one spoke. Eleanor turned, startled by his kindness. I can manage, sir, she said, lowering her head. Brittany laughed nervously. Oh, don't worry about her, Mr. Pierce. She's just our cleaner. She's used to. Nathan's voice cut through hers like ice. Used to what? Being ignored. The silence that followed was heavy. Eleanor's heart swelled with quiet pride. He hadn't changed. He was still the same boy who opened doors for strangers. But what mattered now was the woman who would see that same kindness and respect it. As Nathan moved through the day, he noticed something unusual. Most employees greeted him with fake smiles, eager flattery, or nervous laughter. But one woman didn't. Grace Miller. She stayed at her desk, typing calmly, not even glancing up as he passed. It intrigued him. Hours later, he called the front desk. Send Grace Miller to my office, he said. Gasps rippled through the floor. Grace's hands trembled slightly as she stood. Did I do something wrong? She whispered. No clue, someone muttered. But if you play it right, maybe you won't have to work again. Grace ignored them and walked upstairs. Inside his office, Nathan stood by the window, looking out over the New York skyline. He turned as she entered. You're Grace, right? Yes, sir. He nodded. I just wanted to thank you. Grace blinked. For what? For helping someone when no one else did, he said. My mother always said, kindness is how you spot the rare ones. Grace smiled shyly. It was just the right thing to do. Nathan studied her face. No makeup mask, no practice charm. Just honesty. Still, he said softly, not many people do it. Outside, behind the door, Eleanor stood quietly, listening. Her son's voice carried warmth, curiosity, and something else. Interest. She had seen enough today to know her disguise had worked. The first seeds were planted. But she also knew the game was far from over. Because for every Grace, there was an Anita waiting in the dark. Someone who would do anything to win, even if it meant destroying an innocent girl's life. And Eleanor Pierce was about to find out just how cruel the world could become when money and jealousy mixed in one room. By the end of that week, the office at Pierce Global Holdings didn't feel the same anymore. The air was thick with whispers and fake smiles. Every woman in the building had one goal now, Nathan Pierce. But none wanted him as badly as Anita Brooks, the most cunning of them all. She had beauty, charm, and a dangerous kind of confidence. And she had noticed how Nathan's eyes lingered a second too long on Grace Miller. That was all she needed to turn sweet admiration into a war. Anita watched from across the office as Grace typed quietly, minding her business. Her calmness made Anita furious. She thinks she's better than us because she's nice, Anita hissed to her friend Brittany. She's playing innocent. That's her trick. What are you going to do? Brittany whispered. Anita smiled coldly. Show the boss who she really is. Later that day, as everyone prepared to go home, Grace received another message from an unknown number. Meet me at the Aestia Hotel, 7 p.m. I have information about your promotion. Grace frowned. She hadn't applied for any promotion, but she remembered what the cleaner, Eleanor, had told her the night before. Be careful, child. Not everyone who smiles means you well. Still, curiosity won. Grace needed every chance she could get. Her mother's medical bills were growing, and maybe, just maybe, this could change everything. At exactly 7 p.m., Grace entered the hotel cafe. Her eyes widened when she saw who was waiting. Anita. Anita. What's this about? Grace asked, confused. Anita smiled sweetly, but her eyes were sharp. Sit. I'll get straight to the point. Stay away from Nathan Pierce. Grace blinked. Excuse me. Don't play dumb, Anita said, leaning closer. We all see the way he looks at you. But let's make things simple. She pushed a brown envelope across the table. Inside, stacks of cash. Grace's breath caught. What is this? A gift, Anita said smoothly. You take this, quit the job, and disappear. No one gets hurt. Grace stared at the money. Rent. Hospital bills. Groceries. Everything she needed was sitting right there. For a moment, the world went quiet. She could feel temptation whispering in her ear. But then she saw Eleanor's face in her mind, tired eyes, gentle smile, the way she said, "Kindness is how you spot the rare ones." Grace pushed the envelope back. "No. I don't take bribes." Anita's smile cracked. "You're making a mistake." "No," Grace said, standing up. "You are." She walked away without another word. What Grace didn't know was that someone else had been watching. Eleanor, sitting quietly in the corner of the cafe, her face half hidden behind a newspaper. She saw it all. The test had turned real now. And Grace had passed again. But Anita wasn't done. The next morning, as Grace entered the office, she felt the stares. Whispers followed her. Laughter. Something was wrong. Then she saw Anita standing in the middle of the room, phone in hand. "Everyone," Anita called out, "you need to hear this." She pressed play. A voice recording echoed through the office, Grace's voice, but twisted. "Nathan already notices me. It's only a matter of time before he falls for me." Gasps. Snickers. Disbelief. Grace froze. "That's not real," she cried. "That's not my voice." "Oh really?" Anita smirked. "You want to tell that to him?" Tears stung Grace's eyes. "You edited that." But no one believed her. They turned away, muttering, shaking their heads. By the time Nathan walked in, the entire office was silent. Everyone stared at Grace. "What's going on?" Nathan asked. Anita smiled sweetly. "Just a misunderstanding, sir." Grace was sharing her plans. Grace's face turned red. "That's a lie." Nathan frowned, unsure who to believe. "Grace, my office. Now." Behind them, Eleanor watched it all unfold, gripping her mop tighter than ever. This was no longer just a test. It was cruelty. That night, Eleanor sat in her small apartment, thinking. She could end it now. Reveal herself. Tell Nathan the truth about Grace. But she hesitated. If she stepped in too soon, he might never learn who people truly were. If she waited too long, Grace might break. Outside, rain hit the windows hard, like the storm brewing in her heart. Eleanor whispered to herself. "One more day. Just one more. Then I'll end this." But fate had already made its move. Because while she was planning to reveal the truth, Anita was already setting up the next trap. And this one would destroy Grace's life completely. Morning light crawled slowly across the city skyline, but inside Pierce Global Holdings, the air was anything but calm. By 8 a.m., security guards were whispering. Employees gathered in small groups. Grace Miller, the quiet, kind woman everyone once ignored, had been arrested. The accusation? Theft and fraud. The whole building buzzed. Anita's smile was brighter than her red lipstick. "Told you she was fake," she said, sipping her coffee like it was victory. But across the street, in a small brownstone apartment, Eleanor Pierce sat frozen, the newspaper trembling in her hands. The headline hit her like a blade. Pierce Global employee arrested, funds found in her account. Her heart broke. She knew Grace couldn't have done it. She knew exactly who could. At the police station, Grace sat on a hard metal bench, eyes red and swollen. Her world had fallen apart in one night. Her phone was gone. Her job was gone. Her reputation ruined. But the thing that hurt most wasn't the handcuffs or the cold cell. It was the thought that Nathan Pierce might believe she was guilty. She pressed her palms together and whispered, "I didn't do it, God. Please let someone believe me." Then she heard the door open. A voice she knew too well, soft, aged, kind. "Come, my dear. You're free now." Grace lifted her head. There stood Eleanor, still dressed as a cleaner, but her eyes burned with quiet power. "I posted your bail," Eleanor said gently. "Come with me." Grace broke down, tears spilling down her face. "I swear, I didn't take anything, Mama." "I know," Eleanor whispered, pulling her close. "I know, my daughter." Across town, Nathan Pierce sat in his office, staring at the evidence on his desk. Financial reports, transfer logs, emails. Every single piece pointed to Grace. But something didn't add up. If she really stole company money, why hadn't she run? Why had she stayed, humiliated, heartbroken, still trying to prove herself? He couldn't shake the memory of her eyes, honest, steady, scared. Nathan picked up the phone. "Pull all CCTV footage from last week," he told security. Minutes later, the head of IT entered, pale-faced. "Sir, there's a problem. The footage from that week is gone. Deleted from the system." Nathan froze. "Deleted?" "Yes, sir. It was wiped clean. From an internal account, Anita Brooks's." And just like that, everything clicked. That night, Nathan drove through the pouring rain, his tires splashing across the wet streets until he reached a quiet address in the East Village. He knocked once. The door opened and his breath caught. The woman standing before him wasn't just a cleaner. She wasn't just Eleanor. She was his mother. "Mom," he whispered. Eleanor nodded, tears in her eyes. "It was me, Nathan. I came here in disguise. I needed to see what kind of people worked for you and who might deserve a place in your life." Nathan's voice cracked. "You pretended to be a cleaner? All this time?" "Yes," she said quietly. "And I found someone pure. Someone kind. The only one who treated me like a human being." She turned toward the couch and there sat Grace, eyes downcast, hands trembling. Nathan's heart broke all over again. "Grace," he whispered, stepping forward. "I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you." Grace looked up, tears shining. "It's okay, sir. You didn't know." But Eleanor shook her head. "No. This isn't over." The next morning, the truth exploded across the company. Nathan walked into the lobby with his mother and Grace beside him. He looked straight at Anita and dropped a file on her desk. "Security found your digital signature on the deleted CCTV logs," Nathan said. "And we also found the camera that you thought you erased, the one in the elevator." Anita's face turned pale. The footage played on the big screen. Her, slipping a flash drive into a laptop. Her, transferring funds into Grace's account. Her, laughing about teaching the little angel a lesson. The office fell silent. Nathan's voice cut through the air. "Grace Miller is innocent. Effective immediately, Anita Brooks is terminated and prosecuted." Gasps filled the room. Eleanor stood quietly beside Grace, her disguise gone. Everyone finally saw who she really was, the billionaire owner herself. Anita tried to speak, but security was already walking her out. For the first time, Grace wasn't invisible. She was respected. That evening, as the city lights flickered on, the three of them sat in Eleanor's warm kitchen. For the first time in years, laughter filled the room. Grace smiled through tears. "You didn't have to help me, Mrs. Pierce." Eleanor took her hand. "You didn't have to help me either, when you thought I was nobody. That's what makes you special." Nathan looked at Grace, his voice soft. "Maybe, that's what Dad meant when he said the heart finds truth where money can't." They shared a quiet moment, three people connected not by wealth or power, but by character. Outside, the city hummed, loud, rich, restless. Inside, peace finally found a home. If this story touched your heart, share it. Because somewhere out there, someone needs this reminder. Kindness still matters. Not every rich heart is cold. Not every poor hand is weak. What would you do if you found out the cleaner at your job was actually the owner? Would you still treat people the same if you didn't know who they really were? And most importantly, would your heart pass the test that Eleanor gave?